love it, sweetie. It's beautiful. Did you like the drawing I made?
He walked into the restaurant with nothing but hunger and hope. A tired black single dad, just trying to give his child one normal evening. But before the food arrived, the looks started. The whispers followed. And then came the moment that changed everything. In front of strangers. In front of his child. He was told he didn't belong. What no one knew was that someone else was watching quietly from across the room. Someone whose decision would expose more than just one act of cruelty. This wasn't just about dinner. It was about dignity. And what happened next left the entire room in silence. For Marcus Reed, life had become a careful balancing act. Every day began before sunrise and ended long after dark. As a single father, he carried the weight of two roles without complaint: provider and protector. His young daughter was the center of his world, the reason he pushed through exhaustion, bills, and the quiet loneliness that came from raising a child alone. That evening wasn't supposed to be special. It was simply a break from routine. Marcus had promised his daughter a proper meal, somewhere warm and bright, a place where she could sit at a table and feel like any other kid. The restaurant wasn't fancy, but it was clean, popular, and filled with families laughing over plates of food. Marcus dressed neatly, holding his daughter's hand as they walked in. He wasn't there to make a statement. He wasn't there to be noticed. He just wanted an hour of peace. But the atmosphere shifted almost immediately. The kind of shift you feel before you understand it. Eyes lingered too long. Smiles didn't reach faces. Marcus felt it but ignored it, choosing his child's comfort over his own instincts. He guided her to a table and sat down, unaware that this simple act, existing in that space, was already being judged. And somewhere in the restaurant, unseen and unrecognized, the owner observed quietly, waiting to see how the moment would unfold. The longer Marcus sat, the heavier the air became. Families around them were served quickly. Plates passed by. Laughter continued. But his table remained untouched. Minutes stretched. His daughter shifted in her seat, her excitement fading into confusion. Marcus tried to remain calm. He reminded himself not to assume the worst. Still, the feeling persisted. An invisible line had been drawn, and he was standing on the wrong side of it. Staff members passed by without acknowledgement. Conversations hushed when they walked near. Marcus caught fragments of glances and gestures, subtle enough to deny but loud enough to feel. The message was unspoken yet unmistakable. Eventually, attention arrived, but not in the way he hoped. The interaction was brief and cold. The body language stiff. The energy dismissive. Marcus felt the weight of embarrassment settle into his chest as nearby patrons began to notice. He looked down at his daughter, who now sat quietly, sensing something was wrong but not fully understanding it. That look, the one that asked why, hurt more than anything else. The tension escalated when it became clear they were not welcome, not because of a policy, not because of a mistake, but because of perception. Assumptions made without words, judgments formed without cause. The situation drew eyes. Phones stayed down, but attention rose. Marcus felt exposed, like his presence had become a disruption rather than a right. His heart raced, not from fear of confrontation, but from the humiliation of being reduced to something lesser in front of his child. And still, from a distance, the owner watched, not intervening, not reacting, just observing, measuring, waiting to see how far it would go. When the final act came, the request that Marcus leave, the injustice reached its peak. It was quiet, controlled, delivered with authority, and devastating in its simplicity. Marcus gathered his daughter, every movement heavy with restraint. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood, carrying both his child and the burden of being unwelcome. The room fell silent, not because people didn't notice, but because too many chose not to act. What no one realized was that this moment had crossed a line that could not be undone. As Marcus turned toward the exit, the weight of the moment pressed down harder than ever before. His daughter clung to him, her small arms wrapped tight, sensing the finality of what was happening. This wasn't confusion anymore. This was hurt. The injustice had reached its breaking point, not because of raised voices or chaos, but because of how easily dignity had been stripped away. In that moment, Marcus felt every silent judgment he had endured in his life converge into one unbearable truth. Then, everything stopped. Across the room, the owner stood. The silence became heavier than sound. Eyes shifted, the staff froze. The tension that had been ignored now demanded acknowledgement. The owner had seen everything: the delay, the exclusion, the quiet removal. And now, face to face with the reality of it, the atmosphere changed instantly. What had been brushed aside as routine could no longer hide behind excuses. The power dynamic shifted. The authority that had been misused moments earlier now faced accountability. The room felt different, uncertain, exposed. Marcus remained still, unaware of what was happening behind him, focused only on shielding his daughter from what she shouldn't have had to experience. This was the turning point. The moment when quiet injustice met undeniable truth. And the decision made next would define everything. The incident didn't end at the door. It followed Marcus home, settled into his thoughts, and lingered in his daughter's silence that night. No apology could erase what she had felt. No correction could undo the lesson she had absorbed about how the world might treat her father. But the impact didn't stop there. The owner's response sent ripples through the restaurant, the staff, and beyond. Policies were questioned, behavior examined, accountability enforced. What had been dismissed as a small moment became a reckoning. For Marcus, the experience changed something deeper. It hardened his resolve while breaking his heart. He knew his daughter would grow up remembering that night, not just for the pain, but for how he handled it with restraint and dignity. This wasn't just one story. It reflected a reality faced by countless others who are asked to leave spaces they should never have been excluded from in the first place. Not because of actions, but because of assumptions. Racism doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it simply asks you to leave. And the most dangerous part is how easily it's ignored when no one is watching. But someone was watching that night. The question is, how many moments like this pass unseen? And how different would the world be if accountability arrived every time dignity was denied?